So Swartz thought that all information or scientific knowledge should be free. Do you think that the same should be applied to the news?
I think they're two slightly different cases. I mean, the thing is, if you think about if all the news was free, if nobody was paying for the news, then eventually all the news outlets would disappear, right? Because there'd be no one funding the journalism, and then we would have no more journalism. If no one was paying for academic knowledge and all the academic publishers dried up and disappeared, we would still have exactly as much academic knowledge as we have right now, because the academic publishers do not incentivize the production of academic research. Right? Professors are researching their topics of study and publishing on those, whether or not, Rita Selvier is publishing their journal and sort of holding their copyrights. So I think they're slightly different topics, actually.
Absolutely. And with that distinction between different types of knowledge, I believe when Swartz was a bit younger, he started publishing information about politicians in America. And I was wondering, although that information is in the public interest, arguably it's not scientific. Right. So where would you sort of draw that line?
Well, I mean, a lot of the information that he published in America, it was all public data, right? All of the data that he took was either created by federal government sources, and thus by law there was not copyrighted, or it was material that was in public databases, and again, not copyrightable. What he did was he took these giant data sets that were relatively inaccessible to the average person. You needed specialized knowledge or expertise to access them. In some cases, you actually needed to pay money for them, despite the fact that they were not under copyright. And he took them and he sort of compiled them and made them searchable and presented in a way such that, the normal person, could see.
Incredible. And in terms of open source software, could you comment on the struggle between open source software right now and big corporations and governments?
Yeah, well, I mean, big corporations and governments are winning, right? There's more of them, there's more money behind them, and frankly, the average software user does not know that open source exists. And if they did know, they probably wouldn't immediately care about it, because the big software, manufacturers are, or have been historically, much better at making their software user-friendly, so that, your mother or your Aunt Doris can use it, right? So in terms of penetration, obviously big government, and big software is winning. That said, the longer that the internet has existed, and the more people who have started to use it, by definition, I think the number of people who might be engaged with or interested in the open source software movement is growing too, just by virtue of there being more people on the internet. So as long as there are ways for these people who might be the next Aaron Swartz, to discover that there are other people like them, and there is sort of this movement that, reflects what they believe in, and that they can join it, then, open source will always have a fighting chance.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring in sort of the movement that Aaron Swartz kind of spearheaded, to say the least. What do you think that the average person can do, or not the average person, maybe you can comment on both, to sort of pay homage to his legacy?
That's a great question. I think about this a lot, because I'm not a technical person. I'm not a programmer. I don't have any expert knowledge. If you asked me to go and find a government database, I would get lost in 3 seconds, right? But more broadly, I think the lesson of Aaron's life and what we can all learn, it's twofold, right? It's the perceptiveness necessary to sort of recognize something that's wrong with the world, and the will to try to change it. And you can do that, however, in whatever capacity you can muster, right? It doesn't need to be, necessarily spearheading a gigantic protest movement to overturn legislation or anything like that. It can be as simple as raising your own voice in your own way,